had a real rough day at work today and was not able to get the randomizer, one of the, where you get it and you all comment, but we're going to do it as a trivia. Our guest tonight, we'll get him to do some kind of trivia question while we're on here to do the giveaway, and we'll do it the old fashioned way. And don't fall out with me. I know some of you do. But we do got some stuff to give away. We got a $50 Yak Rod gift card to give away here that I'll send you. And also, too, we got some Deep South lures that we're going to give you tonight. So stay tuned. I'm excited about the guest tonight. We got Mr. Bearded Paddler on. He come out there pretty strong right through COVID. And, man, he's done a great job. Every time I'm looking at a new kayak, a new rig for the water, I go to his channel and check him out. Him and his wife's doing some great stuff. And so we'll get him on here, but I'm going to get through these sponsors. Of course, tonight, main sponsor of the show is Deep South Lure Company. You need to check them out. And also, too, our co-sponsor is USA Kayak Fishing Magazine, Mr. Roy Widgeon. Go check him out, get his magazine, subscribe to it. He's doing a great job, been a great help to the show. Don't forget about the TKS. Well, Mr. Fluke Master and Mr. Mike Musgrove is running this. We got Nickajack just around the corner, June the 28th to the 29th. You still got time. You may not qualify for the championship, but if you've got a buddy and you've been thinking about doing this team thing, it's been a blast. I've loved it. The full 10 fish limit for the weekend has been awesome. And so get you a partner. Come out to the last two there at Nickajack Lake in Tennessee, and also Susquehanna River. It's going to be awesome. If you've never been there, you need to go there. I went last year, and it was phenomenal. Great time. Also, don't forget about Big Bass 250 out at Eco Fishing out there at the Lake of Ozarks, Missouri. I went there last year. Phenomenal. It was absolutely wonderful. You need to go out there. They give $70,000 worth of merchandise away. I actually won a kayak and took it home. So obviously you need to come out there. They give like 8 kayaks away. It was unbelievable. Motors away. Go check them out there. Get signed up for that. Come out there, get you some friends, and have a good time. And also, too, our Deep South Lure Life is the .com. Go check them out. If you don't win the lures tonight, go check out their website. They're doing a lot of different things, but they're actually sponsoring us on the lure side of that. Core shot in 5-inch Senko is amazing. People are doing real good. And this color right down here at the bottom is cotton candy. I'll just give you a little bit of hint. It is a great bait. So go check them out. So like I said, I'm glad I see people popping on here already, and I got the comments pulled up. So I want y'all, interact with us tonight. We got Mr. Bearded Paddler on. We're going to bring him on here. And can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can,
awesome.
Man. Thank you so much for being on here. And I'm excited about it. We got some people on here. Please interact. Comments are on. If you got a question, we'll get to you. And anyways, I'm going to go ahead and let's just start out. Just tell them a little bit who you are, just in case maybe if they're listening to this first time. Tell who you are, you about your wife, and we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So name's Andy, go under Bearded Paddler on both YouTube and Facebook. Mainly the YouTube. So ran a kayak shop here locally for a company called Ozark Mountain Trading Company for about 4 years. And really just what started me on YouTube was interacting with people. People come in and they're looking at different kayaks and they're saying this, hey, I saw this guy do this on YouTube, or they said this on YouTube about this kayak, and a lot of it was incorrect information. And I'm thinking, well, I've got access to all of this inventory. It was February, so it was extremely slow. And so I just got my phone out and just started pointing it at kayaks, and I'm pointing at stuff at kayaks, and I'm basically just doing what I did for a living, just doing it on video. And, it took off from there. My purpose, and still my purpose today, is helping people find that right kayak for them, because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of misinformation and maybe some confusing information on,
Absolutely.
What does what, what do you get with a $1,000 to $1,500 kayak versus a $500 or $700 kayak. And then obviously sky's the limit on fishing kayaks. We can get into the whole, is it a boat or is it a kayak ordeal? But,
Right.
it really, it's what you want your kayak to do and what you think you may want to do in the future. And it kind of future proofs your kayak to where you're not having to upgrade year after year after year. You know, we all heard people that buy that starter kayak and then a year into that, they say, well, I like kayak, you know, I like being on a kayak or I like kayak fishing, but I want something better. I want this to do something different. And then you end up buying and paying more over the long run. So that's why I always tell people, buy your second kayak first and you're going to be a lot better off.
And I think one of the biggest misconception is it's really hard to find a kayak that you can do it all in. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Perfect kayak does not exist. So
that's exactly right. I used to, when I got into it, I didn't know anybody. And matter of fact, I live out in the sticks and I happened to be sick. And I tell the story. I told it for Chad because I was on my phone messing around and actually got into YouTube or something. Or I think back then he was on the Outdoor Channel or something. And I seen Chad on there showing these kayaks. I'm like, I think I could, I could justify and do that. But little did I know it'd probably take me, like you said, $6,000 down the road before I find really the kayak I want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's, that is what a lot of people get into. So me and my wife, we bought decent quality kayaks first, but we had no idea what we were wanting to do. So we started out just wanting to float, like you said, COVID, everyone's getting into it. We had some time on our hands and, a little bit of money. So we're, thinking, okay, that looks like fun. And we're at the grocery store and we see them standing straight up and like, okay, that looks like that'd be a lot of fun. Why don't we look into that? And then just getting out and touching one of them, it just made me think, okay, I'm not getting into this on the water. And then we're blessed to have a local paddle shop nearby that sells good stuff, and realizing that not everybody has that. So some people have to drive 2, 3, 4 hours to get to their closest quality paddle shop. And that kind of really, pivoted my purpose, if you will, as far as content goes. I've kind of really pivoted on saving that local paddle shop. So because they're everywhere, but they're a lot less now than they were 5 years ago.
And here's the thing, when you're first getting into it, it's probably now with YouTube, you probably, as popular as this, people can find out more information. But a guy like me, I didn't even know there was a local paddle shop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I had no idea. I mean, I was so, green to it that I had no idea, you know what I mean? And I would have loved at that time it had somebody like you on YouTube to kind of at least show me the different kayaks, you know what I mean? So I think that's awesome.
And, that's one thing I always try to focus on too is, I'm doing a video on a kayak, I'm taking it on the water, I'm, showing you the pros and cons of it, but I still want people to go to that local shop. So, you can take what I say as a good starting point, or you can, kind of narrow things down a little bit, hopefully make that easier. And then go finding that local shop that has that product in stock to where you can try it and sit in it and touch it, because it's very, very different. Me and Christina actually met Caro in the store. We were picking up some gear here not too long ago. And again, part of me still misses talking to people face to face and going over, the questions, what kind of water are you floating on? What's your budget? What budget do you want to stay within there? What do you want to do with the kayak? And then usually that narrows it down to about 2 kayaks. And then after that, you're kind of seeing really, okay, which one's more comfortable to you? Which one's layout best fits what you're wanting to do? So,
because Andy, you're not working now, like the one you was at kind of shut down, right? Is that correct?
No, they're still running strong. Actually, they've condensed a little bit, and I'm glad to see that they're still kind of doing it. But they were really upfront with me, and they were wanting to shrink some stuff down. So it kind of gave me some time to really find other employment and find the right fit there. But they're still doing it. They've been around for, I believe, a little over 20 years. So, I mean, they're definitely a needed part of the industry. They were at one point, they were the largest brick and mortar paddle shop. So, but right now, the industry is it's a little stagnant right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going backwards, but it's not really going forward in leaps and bounds. We're not in COVID anymore, obviously. So,
No, we're not.
you
No.
know, those, I think a
Them,
lot of those,
them relief checks ain't coming in no more, ain't
yeah, yeah, that,
uh,
you know, people, things have slowed down a little bit, but I think they've slowed down back to normal, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
you know,
Yes.
and those businesses that started in that time, they might have gone a little too hard on it, and some of those are closing down. Some of those businesses that maybe ordered too much inventory, trying to keep up with the demand, and then all of a sudden the demand fell back, and then you've got all this inventory. There's still kayak shops out there with 2022, a couple that have 2021 Hobies still in stock.
Yeah.
So that is that's a problem.
Yeah,
And it's a problem for both those businesses and for the manufacturers, because obviously if I, you know, just if I owned a business and I have stock from 2021, 22, 23, and 24, I'm really going to be hesitant to make a preseason order for the next year unless there's just something exciting new thing coming out that I've just got to get my hands on. And that's really not there right now.
And the other thing too is I mean, let's just face it, the working man, this is the weekend warrior, and the inflation's really put a hurt on everybody. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but those industries are going to get hit first because, we're spending 3 times at the grocery store than we've ever spent before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's do you think that, now with you having probably the connections you have in the kayaks, do you think you're seeing people buy cheaper models now? Maybe, not that they're a bad thing, just they're, if they're getting into it, they're starting a little bit, I don't know about you, but the first time I thought about buying a Hobie, I about threw it up. You know what I mean? I wouldn't think about it,
I think when people think of a company like Hobie, they think of the Hobie Pro Angler.
Yes. Yes.
$5,000-$6,000, and people don't want to pay that. And not everybody needs a Pro Angler. But Hobie actually sells other models that aren't that expensive. And, I think what you're going to see in the industry with manufacturers specifically, is you're going to see more value. So,
yeah,
prices aren't going to go down anytime soon, or some of them are going down out of necessity. But honestly, you're going to see more stuff packed into it, and hopefully they're keeping that price range in that same area. So when someone's looking at buying that $2,000, $3,000 setup, maybe they want to get into tournament fishing. Maybe they just want something that has a little bit of a different functionality than, say, like a bass boat. But, what do you get for that money? Well, there's a lot of kayaks in that price range, but they're very, very different. So some manufacturers do the value a lot better than others right now. But again, that's a constantly evolving thing. The best today may not be the best the next couple of years. So it's cyclical. One company comes out with that great thing, and then 2 years from now, they haven't come out with anything lately. And then now somebody else.
It's capitalism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all part of competition. When you best, you come out the latest and greatest, and then everybody sets back to try to beat you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the competition is ultimately going to be what that benefits us, obviously,
it does.
As consumers.
Yeah.
You've got, Hobie, whatever's going on with Hobie, nothing has really been clarified with that whole situation.
No, not at all. Even my sources still, it's not fixed. I mean,
and that was the thing. My people that I talked to, I'd heard it had it was a done deal. It had been sold. So I'm like, okay, great.
I did too.
And now that's not the case.
Not the case. No.
And, do I think they're going under? No, but somebody made a good point on Facebook, and it kind of mirrored my opinion of it. They will either be kind of rebranded or redone, or they'll just be absorbed, and then somebody will have that patent and be able to put it on their existing kayak. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. I would like, in my opinion, the industry needs a Hobie, but
Yes.
the Hobie is no longer that number one top tier. And
Right.
you know, all you Hobie people out there, that doesn't necessarily mean anything to you. I mean, it doesn't have to, it's not the end of the world, but simply Hobie, for so long, Hobie was right here and everybody else was fighting for here, and they were okay with that. Now, Hobie might have taken a step back, but you've had companies take 2 or 3 steps forward. And,
Yes.
you know, I'm talking about like Big Adventure, you know,
Oh yeah.
Native and Bonafide.
That's
They've
right.
been coming out with the hits nonstop.
Yeah.
And even Jackson Kayak, I mean, Jackson
Yep.
Kayak decreased their prices like 30% on certain models.
Yeah.
And to me, that was their biggest problem, was they didn't have that value. You know,
Yeah.
if the, you know, they come out with the big rig at $4,000, you know, kind of re-released it after doing away with it for a couple of years. Well, now that kayak is like, I don't know, under 3,000. Like that's insane to me. But
well, matter of fact, this leads into a question we got here for ZLM, and I don't know about the Jackson Coosa FD ZLM. I do know I have a Jackson NAR, and I will tell you, they really messed up on the rudder. I mean, they got the fix. I haven't bought the kit yet. The kayak itself has been phenomenal. I like the kayak. It's a great kayak. They did well. There's just a few inconsistencies in the kayak, especially the rudder system. I think they could have done better. But Andy, you speak to that. I don't know nothing about the Coosa FD. I ain't never had it.
I actually really like the Coosa FD. I think that's one of their better kayaks. But for the longest time, that kayak was way too overpriced. And
yes, I thought it was too for a river kayak. It was
and honestly, for river kayak, the Bite FD is probably a better option for rivers. Yes. Which is weird because the paddle version, the Coosa, is by far the better river kayak than the Bite is. But flipping that, you got a little bit of a lighter package on the Bite. But the Coosa is great. The Old Town Pro, I haven't done any videos on that. I've seen them and got hands-on with one. It's a great kayak, as you would expect from Old Town. Really, all they did was they just made the gunnels a little thinner and put motor mounts on it. Is that worth the extra $600 or $700 that they added to it?
Right.
That's really up to you. But you know, I actually like Jackson's their Mark IV pedal drive when they changed that.
It's a great pedal drive.
It's quieter. It does kick up into the hull, which I really like. It's one of the only. It's the only one that I know of that does that.
Yeah.
And I like their product. The rudder, a lot of people have just said that the rudder is not the best. I've never been a big fan of the slider system that they use on some of their kayaks. Now the NAR doesn't have that. It's got the little the wheels.
It's got that rope the whole way through around the. I'll be honest with you. Chad was just on here last week, but we didn't bring it up. I had Chad Brock on, marketing. We talked about the marketing and great company, but that rudder system was. I'll be honest with you. If you've got any kind of engineer background or whatever, you start looking at that thing, you're thinking, boy, I don't know. Maybe it looked good on paper, but I'm just telling you, you just can't keep it adjusted. You can't. I'll be honest with you. I took mine off. Once you put a motor on it, it fixes the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
I put a motor on it and took the rudder off. I hate to say it, but so river's out. You know what I mean? Unless you're going to paddle all day. You know what I mean? So, but I'll let you talk about that. So,
and that was, I like the features that are on the Coosa FD. I like the performance of the Coosa FD. Again, the Sportsman 120 Pro, as weird as this sounds, or as ironic as it sounds, they really kind of took they took something out of the NAR's playbook there, because when the NAR came out, that was the big thing, was the thinner gunnels and which widened the deck out.
Yeah.
Old Town, the Old Town hull is very, very solid. They have a great warranty, but it just I felt like it was a little bit of a change for a kayak that really needed a bigger change, if that makes sense.
I felt the same way, Andy. I mean, I ain't nobody, but I just felt like I thought it was cool, and I thought, boy, there were good improvements. But at the same time, I kind of thought, man, you've had that old system for so long, and you
Yeah.
could have knocked this thing out of the park. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
that's just me. My opinion don't mean nothing. So
Yeah, and it's, you know, again, with Old Town is just they're rock solid.
yes,
Um,
they
I,
are.
I wouldn't
They're a cult.
call.
I tell everybody the Old Town people are a cult, son.
Yes, yes, but that's kind of where I put Old Town though. Is I put them just solid, dependable,
Yes.
just tough. They're not what I would call that extreme premium product, but honestly, they've always been a good value because
Yeah.
you could get a Sportsman 120 for, I believe is what, 27, $2,800 before this year. And now that kayak, that pro is, I believe what, 35, 30. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. I
it,
thought it was a little high. I'll
yeah.
be honest with you. That's
And
my opinion, but I thought it was high.
I think they put way too much on the EPDL. So
Yes.
the EPDL I felt like was more of an offshore benefit than it is an inshore benefit.
Yes.
And when you're talking about a $6,000 kayak that has no spot lock capability, and
yes.
like you can build a kayak fairly easily now for way less than that. Have spot lock capability that uses the GPS to hold your boat in position. It's going to be faster. It's going to, you know, not, to me, if I'm motorized, I'm not going to have a pedal drive. That's just me personally.
Yes.
I like opening up the deck space. I don't like something cluttering it up if I'm motorizing. Now, if you want to motorize it and then use the pedal drive to kind of move around a little bit, but I've made the switch from a bow mount to a stern mount.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to my space, and then if I want to anchor down, I throw an anchor. So,
yeah, right.
But most of my fishing's done in 10 to 15 foot of water or below. So it's easy for me to do that. But if you're doing some deep water fishing, yeah, spot lock is amazing. You know, I used it for a while, so I'm a fan of it. But you know, I like that NK300. I like the efficiency and the quiet and the speed and the ability to cover a lot more ground and still have control over my kayak there.
And for everybody that's listening, one of the things that I think, you know, you can speak to this too. I've always thought, be honest with you, with Old Town, I mean, you can buy them in the box stores. You can't do that with a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
And they've got away with it. I mean, they've done it and kept the quality. And I guess I've never bought one. Maybe you can get the warranty through the box. You know, maybe it's straight from them, you know, and I mean, I don't know how they've pulled it off the way they have, but they have, you know what I mean?
Well,
so,
they're for the longest time, with the exception of like Bass Pro, where you can actually get like the autopilot at Bass Pro sometimes, but they have two different sets. So they have the Sportsman series, which you'll see at a paddle shop, and then they had the Topwater series, or not that they're lesser, they're very, very similar. But you know, they'll have these kayaks that they sell to big box stores, which you'll see like the Old Town Vapor.
Yeah.
You'll see the Topwater series still in a few stores, and then the Sportsman series you'll see at paddle shops. But to me, there's too much similarity. So what happens is a paddle shop is not going to invest in Old Town as much because of that. The store I manage here, I was actually able to get Old Town in our store, but we have a sporting goods store just down the street that sells the other versions of them. So, we were very, very hesitant to do that because, we carry some autopilots, we carry some of the PDLs, but that was really it. We really kind of stayed away from the paddling kayaks and kind of the entry level, which was kind of our bread and butter. We had the expensive fishing setups, obviously, but about 75% of what we did was recreational paddlers, people just getting into the sport. So,
Tony, I'll let Andy answer this. One thing I will tell you, this is nothing. My rule of thumb I tell everybody is the first thing you need to look at, and this is not be discriminatory whatsoever, but how much do you weigh? And that really kind of puts you in at what category you can be at for stateless. I've seen Andy and a lot of other people talk about, how you try to find. I mean, we could spend a whole show on this question, but I'll let Andy kind of briefly, kind of give you an idea. But I am telling you this, I'm on a weight loss journey right now because of my health. And I was a big guy, about 275. I'm down now about 228. And there was only certain kayaks I could buy if I wanted stability and be out there all day and all that. So I'll let Andy go on with that one there. So
personal stability is another thing too. Like he's 250. So not all 250 pounders have the same stability. Not all,
right.
That's just what it is. I'm 255 now. So, my stability is terrible. I've got bad ankles and a bad knee. So
I'm getting old, so I can't stay safe.
Yeah. But I always feel like people focus way too much on the stability. So,
yes.
If you're wanting to feel like if you want to feel like you're standing on a concrete pad, that's a boat. That's where I get into kayak versus boat. The huge platform, big, long, wide. But with a kayak, you're always going to feel like you're on a kayak. You're always going to feel that initial wiggle. And a lot of it, like you said, you've never been in a kayak. So no matter which kayak you get into, you're going to feel that little bit of wobble. The thing that's hard to explain to people is you do get used to that. You do, when you first get into one. First time I got into one, I felt like I was just going to fall over on the side.
Yeah.
When you're in it for a while and you move it around and you kind of play around with the limitations of it, it'll get to where you feel like you couldn't tip it over if you wanted to. So that's why when you go on like Facebook groups and all that, someone says, hey, my name's Tony, I'm 250 pounds and I want the most stable kayak. You're going to get such a varied list of people suggesting stuff. And what it is it's their kayak that they're paddling or motorizing. And they think it's stable because they've been in it and they're used to it. If I was starting out and I was the weight I am now, and I wanted to motorize, the two kayaks that I would look at right now are Bonafides and NuCanoes.
Yeah.
And and I'm talking about specifically motorizing. So you said you wanted to, better equipped to motorize. Those are the top of the game right there. NuCanoe has been.
Tony, I'm in unlimited right now. So if that tells you anything,
yeah,
I was 75. You can't beat it for stability and motoring. I mean, you can't.
Yeah,
so.
I've owned an unlimited. I've owned a Frontier 12, which is
I got one of them for duck hunting.
Essentially the same kayak, but they're 41 inches wide. I'm in the PWR 129.
Yeah,
that is, in my opinion, that's the best motorized kayak out. As far as speed and maneuverability, it also doesn't paddle very bad at all. And it's got a foot controlled rudder straight out of the box. So it's a very good value.
Yeah.
So the two kayaks that I would look at if you're wanting to do those things and have that good weight capacity is Bonafide with, if you're talking about the PWR 129, or if it's in the budget, you can go the XTR if you're just wanting something just bigger, wider.
Andy, what do you think about the 127 if they want to pick one up off Facebook just to try? That was a pretty good kayak for
the P127.
Yeah,
that's a phenomenal value right now. I think they've even dropped the price of those. Yeah. And it's a Bonafide kayak with a native pedal drive on it. Yeah. And in my opinion, with prop pedal drives, native's the best you can get. I if I'm talking about Old Town and native, I'm talking about 1A, 1B. But native, it's a marine grade aluminum. It is rock solid. I've tore those apart and worked on them. They're extremely easy. They're metal inside and out. They're greased. You do have to have some maintenance to it. So you are going to grease it a little bit. And a lot of times they'll include that with the kayak. You'll have that little grease gun, or you can pick them up at your paddle shop, but it's very easy to do. It's very, if you got a local shop, they can maintain it for you there, but really fast, really good, solid kayak, really good, solid, prop drive.
Andy, one of my questions was, when did you know it was the kayaks that you wanted to do? I mean, everybody falls in love at some point in time. What was your love affair? When did it hit you?
So I was about 13.
Oh, so you was doing it when you was younger. Okay.
And it wasn't a kayak so much as it was it wasn't a John boat, but it was a big aluminum boat. and my uncle bought it for me for like $100. I did some chores for him, and it had the wooden oars, and I started out bank fishing. So
Yeah, me too.
the ability to get on the water. So when you're on the bank, and that's kind of the joke right now is, when you're on the bank, you're throwing toward the middle of the water. When you're on a kayak or a boat, you're throwing toward the bank.
That's right.
But with that ability to get on the water, to move around, and to get to some spots that I could never get from by foot, I was hooked. And, you grow up, life happens, and then you kind of get away from the water like I did. And getting back into kayaks, a good friend of mine that I went to high school with, I saw him in the local paper here, and he was fishing from a kayak, and I didn't even know that existed. This is good 20 years ago. But he was fishing from a kayak, and to me, when I thought of kayak, I'm thinking of the sit-in,
Oh yeah.
it's like sitting in a plastic kazoo, and
Yeah,
I had no idea about sit on tops and any of that. And then, I looked into it a little bit and just like, well, there wasn't a whole lot of options out, but at that point. And then when I started working in the industry, I was telling my wife, I was like, you're not going to believe all of the options out there. You got kayaks with swivel seats. You got kayaks with rod storage built into it. You got kayaks that you pedal, and it not knowing just how many options there were. I kind of fell into the same trap that everyone else does is, oh my gosh, like, what do I need? What do I want? But man, I fell in love with it.
That's why we need your show, Andy, because it does get overwhelming.
It does. And that was the whole purpose of it. But with me, my wife was a paddle boarder before she got into kayaking.
I've heard her say that on another podcast.
Yeah, it was something for us to do together that we really enjoyed. She got tired of watching me fish when she was just kind of floating around. So we got her into fishing. She caught her first fish on her first trip, and then she was hooked. And now it's like, between fishing and kayaking, and like we're broke. It's like she don't go clothes shopping. She goes fishing tackle shopping. And
I know, I heard her say that. I think it was on Windows here a couple weeks ago.
And that's legit.
Lucky man.
We go somewhere. We've got lure. Of course, I mean, it's just like anybody else. Like, we've got lures and stuff that we hadn't even touched water yet. And we still buy more and buy more. But, now getting into the river stuff, I'm really loving getting back to the rivers, and I'm loving getting back to simpler setups. So I've got my PWR in the garage. I've got my Newport motor. I've got the sliding foot steering on it. Like, I've got it rigged up to the max for the lakes. And I love the lakes, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about getting on a scenic, beautiful, spring-fed river and having a paddle in your hands in a kayak that responds well to being paddled, and it doesn't feel like you're moving around a battleship, and just catching smallmouth bass, catching rock bass, catching sunfish, catching, seeing gar and carp, that are half the size of your kayak. It's a different feel to it. And it's something that I never got away from, but it's also, it's almost, it's very Zen-like. It's hard to be in a bad mood when you're out on a river and just enjoying, you're soaking it up.
That's it. It's funny you brought that up. That was one of my questions. I feel what little bit of time I've been in an industry, I'm there myself. I'm down, I've got the tournament rig. I got the double monitors. I got the, NK 300 on the back. I mean, I got it, and I do tournament fishing, but I'll be honest with you, I find myself more and more, and I think you probably got perfect timing with your show. You can talk about a little bit is I'm looking, I'm losing this weight. I'm really got my eyes on some throws and goes. I go to the river at least 3 or 4 times a year up in Tennessee, and I find myself and other people talking about thinking, yeah, that's cool. We got them tournament rigs, but this is why it all started. Let's get back out there at it. You know what I mean? So I'll let you talk about a little bit about that. So.
Yeah, and I that was really that's me too. I'm the same way. I don't do tournaments, but I do. And I always tell people too, because a lot of people get kind of down on the tournament scene or the motorized kayak scene. Is companies are building kayaks that people are buying, and it's not just your tournament anglers, your professionals. These are your casual weekend warriors that are putting motors on their kayaks. They're doing that instead of buying a boat or buying a bass boat, because the bass boat is, I know I know people are saying like, yeah, I could buy a boat for the price of some of these kayaks. Like, well, not really anymore.
No.
When you're talking about getting on a simple John boat with a little old outboard motor, you have some serious limitations on that.
Yes.
And, a lot of people don't realize that until you actually get in it. But, without getting too into the weeds on that, people want to get out and people want to fish. People want to bring a friend. So you're starting to see you're starting to see more people get into it. You're starting to see people, doing an XTR where you can do tandem seating on it.
Yeah.
But you're talking about the river. We just started. We just released that video here 2 days, day before yesterday. No, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. My days are all mixed up.
Hey, listen.
So first episode.
Either watch TV or you make TV. So if you're a creator, you lose days real quick.
Oh yeah. So we dropped the first episode yesterday. Did really well. We did it on the Upper Jacks Fork River in South Missouri. A friend of mine, James, he owns Midwest Kayak Company there in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and he took me to this river and we had a ball. It was gorgeous. It was clear. And then I just shot some video, kind of played around with how I wanted this series to look. And it came out really great. I was really, 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 really happy with it. But we've got some rivers coming up on that series that are going to be, maybe there's going to have more significance historically. And there's going to be a lot more of a story to tell. And that's, like I was telling you earlier, I'm still going to do my kayak videos, but this is going to be a little bit more of like a cinematic narrative. Yeah. And it's just going to be me talking about specific rivers and what they mean to people and what the history behind some of these waters are. And really just why a lot of us got into kayaking or fishing in general is, we grew up on some of these rivers. We learned to fish, we learned to swim. It just, there's so much meaning behind a river. And that's, the fact that if I can showcase a waterway that people just enjoy to watch and it makes people want to come to these areas and experience this for themselves, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Christine. Go ahead.
I think what's funny, especially for the two of us, is we grew up in very different areas. He grew up around here. I grew up in Chicago. But I actually learned how to swim in the Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we both have like a connection to the Buffalo in this area is actually pretty cool too.
Are you all in Arkansas or where are you all at? Yeah, that's what I thought. Right? For the listeners out there to be listening. So you're in Arkansas. So was you born and raised in Chicago?
I was.
And so is the outdoor thing new when you got out of there, or did you do it up in Chicago?
And I mean, we didn't. There's not a whole lot to do.
Well, I know I've been there. That's why I asked. That's why.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to do outside in Chicago. I mean, we kind of grew up. We were actually just talking about this at work. Actually, I'm a millennial, and the Gen Xers were the ones that you go outside until it's dark and then you come in.
Right.
But my sisters, yep, my sisters are older, so I'm actually have probably more in common with the Gen Xers. Yeah. And so we were outside all the time. I mean, I remember one of my very first memories is we had bunnies in our backyard. Me and my sister were like actively catching them and petting them. Like, so like we kind of enjoyed being outdoors, but we've been coming, like my parents had a summer house out here for years. And so I've been coming here since I was a kid. And when I say like I learned how to swim in the Buffalo, Lake Norfolk, they stuck me in the boat. I didn't know how to swim. I was interested. I jumped into the water. Nice. And so somebody was there. So they had to like pick me up out of the water. Cause like, I think I was less than a year old.
Well, see, the difference between your all's generation and ours is my uncle and my grandfather said, "Oh, you want to learn how to swim?" They picked me up and throwed me in. They said, "You'll learn to swim quick."
I mean, I guess technically she's a millennial, but she's on the very, very cusp between there.
You.
So
she's on that brim.
I do like to give her crap over that, but I would tell my kids that, like, grown-ups think your generation's ridiculous. It was the same thing when we were kids. Like, with Gen X, we had our Mountain Dew and our MTV and our X Games and all that, and skateboarding, and we were the lazy generation to the baby boomers, and now we're the workers, and now we're talking about millennials and Gen Z and whatever label you put on a generation. But it evolves over time. But
it does.
And just like her talking about the river, and then like I've got a pretty extensive history with Buffalo National River, and like when I'm on it, it's almost emotional experience for me. So like it's almost like being in church. Like it's very different on
spiritual,
that river.
That's what I told everybody.
Yeah. And I asked a question on our Facebook page where, what draws you to the river? There's, Buffalo River groups out there that on Facebook are like, what draws you there? And people are saying like, it gets me closer to God, or it gets, it makes me forget all of my problems, or, you get kind of sucked into the rat race and the hecticness of, that life brings, and, career, and, trying to do what you need to do. And, you get to the river and you're in awe of all these bluffs and waterfalls and springs and creeks going into the river. And, when the river's up, it is something to behold. And when it's down, pack a lunch, you're going to be dragging around, and carrying a kayak around, but it's just, it'll humble you on, but it'll also just, you can float the same stretch of the river every year and never float the same river twice. So that's another thing.
Speaking of that, you that might be listening or might be on here, if you've never done rivers, I didn't growing up, so I've had to learn it since I got into kayak fishing. Please, and Andy he can speak to this, do your research.
Yeah.
Rivers can be very dangerous at certain parts of the time. And I'm telling you, I hate to hear them stories. You know what I'm saying? I mean, where people didn't do their research. And luckily I had somebody to take me my first time, and they're like, know the river gauges and, all that stuff. So rivers,
PFD.
Yeah. PFD, they can be the funnest time of your life, but they can also be dangerous if you go at the wrong time. So I'll let y'all speak to that. You know what I mean? So, I think rivers, the funnest to me, is one of the funnest things to go fish and do. You know what I mean? Like you said, but you hear stories every day. That's what's bad, So,
and that was one of the things that's actually really new to me. I learned how to swim in the Buffalo, but all of my time was really spent on the lakes here. So floating the river for the first time, I think happened like 2 years ago for me.
Yeah.
Nervous wreck.
Yeah, I was a nervous wreck because like every year, like we're so used to living in this area. Every year there's drowning incidents on the lake. There's drowning incidents on like all of the rivers. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there, I was like, and it is terrifying when you don't know.
That's
and
right.
So one of the things that we've definitely learned, we've known, but we've also learned, is having more than one, just not going by yourself, number one. And number two, for us, we actually tend to like to go with at least one other person. Mm-hmm. And we tend to like to do some of those other floats where we have more people, just because it's a community. It really is. But it's also that idea of like, if something happens, there's more than one person there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one bit of advice that I would give to people on the river is go with a group where possible, and the order that you go matters as well.
Yes.
So you want an experienced person in the front, but you also want an experienced person in the back. So on Buffalo River last year, we had that river takes people every single year. And even the river that we did the first episode on, somebody died a couple of days before there, just in a really kind of calm area. It can happen anywhere. But, it was a 65-year-old lady. She passed away on the Buffalo. She died in about 1.5 feet of water.
Yeah.
And her kayak had hit a root ball of a down tree. She got pinned up against it. She did not have her PFD on. And, the people that were going with her couldn't go back up the current to help her out. So, that was definitely never tether your paddle. That was another thing. So Jason, always wear your PFD, but I would never tether your paddle. That's another thing I see people do. That's kind of a whitewater thing, but what a tethered paddle can turn into is you can get tangled up in that.
Yes.
So if you tip over that tether can go around your neck, because remember, you're holding on to that, and you've got a cord attached to that. So that's going to wrap around your neck, wrap around your hand.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying wrap around your foot. And now, instead of you just catching up to your kayak and your gear down the river, you're out of control. You can't get, it's the same situation as they teach you to have your feet up when you're floating out of control.
Yes. Yep.
So your feet can't get caught in rocks. That's another thing that happens a lot is your foot can get caught wedged in between two rocks. The current is pushing you forward in a way where you can't get it loose, and it'll just drag you under. So,
and one of the other things that everyone I think forgets, and I know this happened to me, was it last year when both you and I tipped over?
Yeah.
It was last March.
Yeah.
It was cold.
Yeah, that was cold.
It was cold.
That was so cold.
One thing that people, and I forgot to do it, and his friend was just like, let go. Because I'm trying to hold on to the kayak. I'm trying to hold on to my paddle. And like, as soon as I let go, I saw my catchboard, grabbed it.
Got to say the catchboard.
Yeah, saw my paddle, eventually grabbed it, and just let the kayak go.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no point.
And I wasn't trying to pick on what Jason said there, because that is a common sense would tell you, because you're taught to on a river, you want to tether everything together, so you don't have the river yard sale going on. You've got everything tethered together, so you're chasing one thing instead of multiple. But with a paddle tether, it really creates a hazard where there shouldn't be one, because like she said, you're separated. You're not going down a several mile rapid. It's going to collect in an area. Just you'll get it. If you're with a group, I went with a float. I went on a float earlier this year where a buddy of mine tipped over and he lost his seat. He lost his paddle. He lost a lot of his gear, and he just was able to get to the bank. I was able to bring his stuff up. I was able to, oh, there's Uncle David Outdoors. Nice. He was the one that was with us.
He was the one who reminded me to let go.
Yeah. And there's always a panic involved with, even if you're experienced or, when you hit that water, you're disoriented. You lose some of that motor skills temporarily. And like she said, where she tipped over, it wasn't very deep.
Nope.
So, but just
stand up.
Just not touching that bottom. And then she was thinking, okay, I got to grab this. And she wasn't focused on just get yourself right. And
the worst part was that it was cold. Like,
that's what I was getting ready to say, Christine. When it's cold, it takes your breath.
And that was the thing, is like, I asked him, I did not know if I fell left or right. I just remember coming up for air and just feeling cold. Yeah. That's it. That's all I remember.
And what's the first thing you do when you hit water?
Yep.
You breathe in. And when you breathe in, if you don't have a PFD on, what do? it sinks you down, letting all that air out. And it does, it takes your breath away just for a second. And, then you collect yourself. I dumped on the same trip twice. Thanks.
Those were the videos he released.
Yeah. The first time was just,
I'm gonna let you forget that one.
Oh, the first time was just stupidity. I knew better. I did it anyway, tipped over.
Right.
But I also had a claw anchor on the front of that kayak. It wasn't deployed, but it got caught in a root ball. So my kayak is, hung up. I reach up to grab the anchor to get it out of the root ball. And I had some treble hook lures that were on the end of I had my poles there. And
Right.
I grabbed one and just gripped it real tight. And so at this point, I'm just mad. So I'm literally just ripping this thing out of my finger. And, I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, this is early in a long float. I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyway, which is, common theme. When I'm with a group, I have a tendency to do stuff I wouldn't normally do if I was solo. But yeah, I mean, I was trying to go left hard, and then there was a current going in front of that root ball, and it swung my nose right into it, and it was just a head-on collision with that, and then it just tipped me over to the side. I guess I should have said either tether it to your kayak so you don't end up with. Well, the problem with that is if you tether the paddle to your kayak, you still got a cord with 2 points of connection. So it's kind of that clothesline effect. You're both going down at a high rate of speed usually. And that is classic there. Bring a backup paddle. Most of kayaks will have internal storage. If it doesn't, under your seat in 2 pieces, you can tether that or just tie it to the kayak. So if something really major happened and you can't get your paddle, you do have a backup. Uncle David actually had that happen to him once, and he was lucky to have that backup paddle. So, because if you're out in the middle of the wilderness and you don't have a paddle, you're literally up the creek without a paddle.
It's not just that. We actually have another friend who, in the middle of his, I think it was like a mile into, I think, a 10-mile float or something like that.
Paddle just snapped.
Paddle snapped.
Yeah.
Oh,
you had a cheap paddle. You had one of them
body gloves.
Yeah, one of those body glove paddles you get at like a big box store, and his blade just came off, and so he didn't lose his paddle, but he lost the functionality of that paddle. But I think it was a group of ladies, I think, that gave him one of their extra paddles or something, and it was a quality paddle too. So then that he broke down and bought it. He didn't have it with him.
No, I actually think that they had lost a paddle and he found it down the river.
Okay.
So
yeah.
we've had that experience too, where somebody loses their paddle and then they end up finding it just a little bit further down. So.
And I know what everybody's thinking is, the first thing you ever hear on YouTube is buy a good paddle, buy a better paddle and you do a kayak. The flip side of that is, though, when something like that happens, you're probably going to lose that good paddle. And I know everybody wants to bring the cheaper paddle just in case they lose it in the river, but it's not a good idea. You know what I'm saying?
With a good paddle, though, like it's a night and day difference.
Yes, absolutely.
You do get what you pay for. And I don't mean everyone needs to buy a $500 paddle, but, I think ours were like 150 when we bought them. They're probably a little bit more now, but I could probably use a better paddle now, but you get so much better control. You get so much better response. But the biggest difference between a cheap paddle and an expensive paddle is the blade. So the blade engineering and the blade materials. Your blade's not going to flex as much. It's going to be a lot more rigid, and that gives you more efficiency. So when you're digging and pulling, it is going to propel you that much better. As to where the cheaper ones, you've got a lot of give to those paddle blades. So you're doing more work to go the same distance. And I always tell people, if you got $1,000 to spend $200 on your paddle, spend $800 on your kayak. You can upgrade your kayak later if you really want to, but a good paddle you'll keep, unless you're just going to a completely different kayak and you just need a longer paddle, which they do have some good adjustable length paddles out there. But
let me ask.
I have to tell on myself. So the first kayak I ever bought, I thought everybody's crazy about that $500 paddle. So I went down to Academy and bought one of those, metal, $50 paddles. First time we went out paddling, I was like, I'm going back to the store. This thing,
Yeah.
my arms was falling off. I was like,
Yeah,
this is
it
stupid.
does.
Uh,
They estimate for every mile you paddle, it's 1,000 paddle strokes. That adds up.
Yes.
That adds up a great deal.
yes.
Now, if you got a motor or you got a pedal drive and you're just looking for backup, or like James was saying on his situation, like
Yeah.
you're looking for a backup paddle, guys, you don't have to buy an expensive paddle for your backup. You're just doing that in case something happens. But your primary paddle there should be a little bit of thought into that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm gonna ask
Go
a
ahead.
terrible question. Would you rather lose a paddle or a rod?
Honestly, I'd rather lose a rod, but I'm
That's
not saying I
exactly
wouldn't cry about it a little
That's,
bit.
that's I mean, I hate the little floaty things. I won't use them. So I've lost rods before. I'm just going to tell
Yeah,
you.
I lost one on that trip on the video. The one video clip I shared where like the GoPro's dragging
Yes.
against the bottom.
Yep.
I had a lose Mach 2 spinning combo that I really liked for rivers and lost that one. That was my first semi-expensive. I had that one for a while. I've got some bait casters that I will risk my life to save now, but
Yes.
it's
So going back to more of the content creating. So what made you even get the little itch? I mean, did you put that first video out and you thought, maybe I can do this, or what? Everybody's kind of got their story. So what's the story
with
on that?
me, again, working, there's a difference between having an interest in kayaking and working in the kayak industry, and especially being a manager of a retail shop.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I did not, I'm driven by a fear of failure. So I wanted to be the smartest person in the room. I didn't want to be the one running the store and the one that didn't know anything about what I'm doing. So I literally spent that entire winter, because I was hired in February, and there was nobody. I think the first 2 weeks I talked to like one person because we had a snowstorm and we're off for a while. So I'm writing down brands and models that we had on the floor. I'm watching every video that I could possibly watch. And I'm usually watching the ones that the manufacturers put out, because they're going over the features they want us to know about. And then I'm seeing all these other videos out there of people doing like, okay, wait a minute. And they're just bad information. And, people watch that, and people will tend to believe somebody like me or somebody else over a manufacturer doing their own video, because it's like, hey, these are real people. They're doing, real interactions with these kayaks. And some of the stuff that I was saying, I was just amazed. But I'd have to tell people, like, any person with a cell phone can put a video on YouTube. And then after answering these questions so much, I'm like, well, shoot, I do this for a living. I can just do it on my phone. And my first video was on the Bonafide RVR, and we were the first retail store in the country to get that kayak. So not only was it brand new and exciting, nobody else had Bonafide hadn't even put out content on it yet. So I just, and like a beginner, instead of putting my phone in horizontal, I had it in vertical, so you could still see the black bars down the side of it. No editing, it was just, you could just see my finger, pointing out stuff on the kayak, just going through bow to stern, so I don't miss anything. And, it got, God, I think it got like 7 or 8,000 hits after the first couple of days. And I'm like, I'm like, okay. And then I did a couple of other ones, and I thought, okay, I've got some time and I've got all these kayaks I can talk about. So my purpose was to build a library of walkthroughs that people can go through and do. And then it grew faster than I thought it would. And we had 5 stores at the time. So we had, I'm in north central, kind of on the east side of north central Arkansas. We had store in South Missouri and one in northwest Arkansas. And people were coming to these other stores saying, hey, I was watching Bearded Paddler on YouTube, and one of the employees at one of the other stores pulled up the video and it was me. So then they started asking questions about that. And then they started, embedding my videos on their website, and it kind of built from there.
Mhm.
And, I enjoyed it. I didn't get burned out until like year 2. I've only been doing it for three years now.
I think so.
This is the beginning of the 3rd year. So yeah, I'm not a seasoned person by any means, but did a lot of content. So I started slowing
You've done
down
well.
on it.
You've done well. Yeah.
I stopped using my phone and I invested in better audio. I invested in a lot better camera stuff. And, I wanted my stuff to look good because I started saying, okay, I want to get more into the creation stuff and not just the guy that holds his phone out and does nothing wrong with that. But, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I got into more about editing. I started playing around with some different stuff. I had a couple that I put music in the background while I was talking, at a low volume. And I'm like, okay, just play around with it. But literally looking at the comments is like, this sounds like a commercial, or like the music's distracting. I'm like, okay. So, I've definitely, some things work, some things don't for me. And I definitely kind of hit my niche there with, a quality video on the quality kayaks, and just doing the pros and cons, telling the flip side of it, what this kayak does well, what it doesn't do well, and let people decide for themselves, because they're ultimately going to anyway. But, just trying to give them a good place to start at least. And especially when you're talking about starting, it's really intimidating. And I feel like a lot of people get so frustrated at the amount of options and the amount of information out there. I would probably be even surprised the amount of people that ended up not even buying a kayak after all of the research and all, because you really can go down the rabbit hole too much.
Yeah, boy. Yeah. Christina, you love it. Who come up with the name?
He
I
did.
know. Did he? Okay. So obviously, was it the first thing that came to you, or did you have to think about it a little?
I didn't think about it too long, but yeah, I mean, I tried to put some thought to it. I just didn't want it to be Andy's kayaking channel or something. Like, I wanted something that was a little catchy. But and I don't film fishing typically. So there's so many people in that space, and I believe anybody can do it. I believe anybody can, get better. I'll get people that reach out to me saying, like, hey, what do you think of this? Or I tell people that my favorite video that I ever watched about content creation is, and we don't watch him all that much, but like Mr. Beast, he's probably the biggest, biggest YouTuber out there. And he did a interview one time where they were talking about, what do you say to people getting started? And he said, your videos suck. No, your videos suck. But try to get better with each individual video, and then you'll find yourself creating really good videos that people want to watch. But the good thing about it is your first videos suck, but there's still people wanting to watch them.
Just FYI, his initial RVR video that is vertical is still on YouTube.
Terrible, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's terrible. But it's it's where I started at. So there's always going to be, the grass isn't greener on the other side. Like, just do what you do. If it's something you're passionate about, chances are somebody else has a passion for it also. So they're going to want to watch that content. And if you're getting better with each video, which is not hard to do, it could be something just learning to edit your filler words in. I know what I say, and I know to cut them out. And the uhs, or the, everyone's got that word they use when they're trying to think. And
mine's so I gotta watch it. So
mine is again. I say again a lot, and I don't always edit all of them out, but I edit a good amount of them out. So, and it's never the first take. That's another thing.
No.
I don't. I'm not polished talking on camera. I have what I want to say, and then I'll start elaborating on stuff, and I'm like, shut up. I'm like, shut up.
Rabbit
Why are
hole,
you,
rabbit
why are
hole.
you talking? Why are you going in the weeds on a video? Nobody cares about that. So,
That's right.
you know, like I said, I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I've always got her to laugh at me on the side, so that's always a good thing. But yeah,
What
it's,
did
you
you
know,
think? What did you think about it, Christine, when he started? What did you think?
You know, as crazy as this sounds, I fully understood it because, like, this is one thing I don't talk about very often. I actually have my own channel.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
I need to
Yeah.
put a grain of salt out there. The reason I started mine was because I'm a teacher. So my content was
Okay.
created for my courses. So when he's like, "Hey, I want to get into this," I was like, "You know what?" I'm like, "I fully understand it."
yeah, you're sitting on a gold mine.
And so for me, it was just I'm like, okay, we'll see how it goes. But I also know we both have this hyper focus when we're focused on doing something. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, you just tell me what you need and we'll go do it. And one thing that I think, at least I know I don't talk enough about, there's the kayaking, there's the fishing, there's the nature and the animals.
Yeah.
That is my first love because I'm a
Mhm.
biologist by trade. And
Oh.
so for me, anytime that you allow me to get out and see it, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy. If it's a snake, if it's an eagle, if it's a bird, if it's fish, I don't care. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Did either one of you have any? And the only reason I ask this because I get all kinds of content creators on here. Did either one of you have any artsy background at all?
No.
I just
yeah.
wondering that because
Yeah.
a lot of them do. Because like me, I started about 3 years ago or so, whatever. I've always had that. I used to do a bunch of drawing, send stuff to stay, all that stuff. And, you get in the working world, you have kids, you get family, you get away from it. Maybe you show the kids once in a while in their art class how to do something or whatever. But, I was like, but when I got back into it doing this, it was kind of like, I started loving the fact of making the thumbnail and doing all that because it brought back that years, in the art. So I just wondered, I figured, to see if any of you did. So,
I've had to learn everything from scratch.
Yeah.
and I'm not going to say I didn't have help from people, but I'm real careful on doing that because like, I don't want the only reason I'm reaching out to somebody is like, hey, can you help me with something?
Yes.
But,
yeah. I'm with you.
Yes.
Yep.
But I take my feedback seriously because I'm not watching my content. I'm creating it. So I'm editing it. Last thing I do is watching it and critiquing it because it's already out there. So once it's out there, it's out there. The thumbnail thing is something that I'm not the greatest at. I'm not the worst at. I can put a little more time into it and probably be better at it. But honestly, after I've edited, after I have chopped it down, added what I want to, put text in it, all that stuff, and then I'm making the thumbnail and I'm like, okay, I try to do something cool or scenic on there, but most people associate my videos with my face. So I've usually got to put my face on it, unfortunately. So, but people will say like when they see my face on a thumbnail, they know I've got a new video out to where if I'm just doing a picture of the kayak or maybe just my logo even, it doesn't seem to hit as much, but I've done it so long and done the same thing so much that again, that's another niche thing. People see that like, oh, he's doing a video on this kayak and, you're seeing a river of different, videos on the same platform there, but then you see my thumbnail, like, well, let's see what he thinks on this. So
if you saw the pictures in his phone, I think you'd maybe think that he had a little bit of an ego about himself.
Oh my God. Yeah. I hate
one of those, huh?
I hate that so much too. I loathe taking pictures of myself and I'm forced to have to do it. Even for the thumbnail, I actually outsourced the thumbnail for the Take Me to the River series. And again, I was really happy with it, but I have to take that picture and I can't do that myself. So I've got my sunglasses, my hat on, I got my PFD on, and I got a paddle. We're standing in the backyard.
And there's dogs everywhere.
Yeah, and she is taking photos of me at different poses, and I'm feeling like a complete tool while I'm doing it.
Right.
But it came out good, you know.
I feel like I could probably make some money on doing like behind the scenes
Outtakes,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, if I just sat there and recorded him.
Yeah, you'd have to put like a PG-13 on it though. I get really frustrated at myself on that stuff. But yeah,
well,
taking
Christine
pictures.
Those that might be listening, put a plug in for your channels. They might be interested in that. Tell them what's your channel where they can find.
So let me just kind of put this out there. I teach anatomy and physiology, which means it's a lot of dissection.
Yeah,
I got you.
What's your most viewed video?
My most viewed video, I think I have like 27,000 views on it. Is sheep testicle dissection.
But
it's on what?
Sheep testicle dissection.
Wouldn't you know it?
And
that's hilarious.
And that's what I tell her is my video content is not what you would call evergreen. You know, it's not going to last forever.
Right.
You know, like if I do a video on a PWR today, 5 years from now, they may not even have that kayak anymore. They may have made so many changes to it that it's better then. And why is someone going to watch the video I did 5 years ago? Her videos, I tell her, is like, you can do videos, you can put a little bit of thought into it, a little bit of production, do a good thumbnail. And there are people that make more money than doctors doing the content that she does on there. Like I told her like that, like if I was in her position, that's what I'd be doing.
I got you.
I'd be turning work into work, but making.
I mean, I've always heard you can find it all on YouTube, but that one takes the cake, Christine.
Yeah.
I didn't know we could find that on there.
But the thing is thumbnails matter, but titles and description matter more. And the fact that she's got testicle in it, it's just it's going to come up. It's going to come up on so many searches that it's
yes, good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was so unexpected. It was kind of funny because like I was literally in reproductive system and we have male and female models, and then we actually do a testicle dissection, and like the number of views that those 3 videos got within like the first 10 days, I was just like, that's so strange to me. But I mean,
very strange. I feel a little uncomfortable right now. I'm just going to tell you.
I ain't watching it. That's
no, me either. Nope. Oh wow, I didn't realize. It's already been an hour and 15 minutes.
Well, welcome to talking to me. Unfortunately,
well, I mean, it's fine with me. I appreciate y'all being on. I got a couple more questions here. We'll try to get through them here.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is kind of on the content side. This only other question I really have was, how do you balance, and I know this is hard for all of us that's doing it, but how do you balance the real life to the content creator? I mean, obviously y'all got jobs and, how do y'all do that? It's
hard. It is really hard. My job, I typically will work 50 hours in a week now, and I'm traveling. I'm traveling a lot. So
you're like me. I'm actually sitting in West Palm Beach right now. I leave on Mondays and get home on Thursday nights sometimes.
Yeah, so I got home a few hours ago, and
leaves tomorrow.
I'll leave tomorrow, and then I'll be back again for a few days. Like it's I've been I've been central and southern Missouri, central Arkansas. I've been I've been all over the place. But regardless, it's hard because when I uploaded my first videos with my phone, I wasn't doing any editing. I was sitting there thinking, like, what's this burnout that everyone, this is the easiest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I started getting into the weeds, like, okay, how do I make my videos better? How do I improve on things? Which is sky's the limit. You can do Hollywood production style videos when you're talking about the simplest things, but that stuff costs money. That stuff takes time. And to me, time is money. So, you know, regardless of what you're doing, there's a pro and a con to it. You know, if it's going to take me, if it takes me several hours to do something, but I can find, you know, like even the thumbnail, if I can get somebody to do the thumbnail in, you know, 10 minutes versus me fiddling around on my software for, you know, an hour. Yeah, that's worth it to me, especially if it costs like $5 to do. But you know, with me, it's once you do it for so long, you hit a wall, and that wall can be a creative wall. It can be a time wall or just an energy wall or all three.
Yeah.
And with me, it was time and energy. There's always content to do. There's always something to talk about, or I could do a Hobie video and a stability video every week, and I could probably quit my job. It just, but I would get so burned out on doing that. And then I'm known as the stability and the Hobie guy. And then if I wanted to do something else, it's just going to fall flat because YouTube won't push it as much because not, you know, your whole audience is built on just those two things. So keeping things fresh, that's a grind. Editing, making sure it looks good, setting the camera up, lighting was another thing. And you don't have to do any of these things, but it's just something that I got into. The money I make from YouTube pays for my camera, my lenses, my lighting, all that stuff. So, you know, I have a tendency to do more stuff with that than I normally would because, you know, it's just, I'm not pocketing a lot of money from YouTube. It's mostly just goes into equipment. And, you know, I like to do wildlife photography too. So, you know, that's kind of the camera I use to video with. It takes really good pictures too. So we'll go to like a wildlife park or something, or go out in the woods and just, you know, film birds or something.
I think the other thing we've learned to do with content creation, especially, is we call them going on adventures, because we just like going driving in this area because it's so pretty. So there's been times where we've just, you know, we've got to do some content, but we're going to take a drive to do it. Like he did a thing on the Shark pump. It's a sup pump. And we actually did that at an access point to the Buffalo. Because we wanted to go out and drive. And so we did, and we did some content in the process. So we kind of try to do, with his limited time being home and everything, we try to make sure that we balance that too.
And that's one of the reasons I don't work with sponsors very much. Not saying it'll never happen, and it's happened in the past, but I'm very limited on what I do on affiliates. So that the one thing I learned from doing it, because when you're in the beginning and you're either not making money yet or you're making a really small amount of it, is when somebody comes along and says, hey, we're going to send you this battery or air pump or, you know, whatever, you're jumping right at it because, oh, wow, someone's noticing me, someone's doing this. But they send those things to everybody. And what it does is you're wanting to get your content out, but then now all of a sudden you have an obligation to make a video for something that maybe you're not into, maybe you don't feel like it justifies an entire video on one product. And that was something that really started to grind me. Was I'm getting all these emails from these off the wall things, and I've turned down stuff that pays money or stuff that gives me product that, you know, I'm just not interested in, or I just want to do something different, you know? So the affiliates that I work with that I value are Catch Products. I love working with them. I do Red Odeo batteries. You know, honestly, I had like 5 or 6 battery companies reach out to me. So, you know, a bunch of them sent me batteries, but I thought, okay, I'm going to stick with one and just keep with them because they're all the same quality to me. You know, like they're the same internal parts in all of them. The money that you pay for some of the other companies, you're essentially just paying for a longer warranty. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take one battery company that does what they say they're going to do. It's a quality product. It does what I need it to do. And I'm just going to ride with them. And that's Red Odeo. So I like them. They've done well by me. You know, people that watch my videos, they buy them. They've been happy with them. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. And then obviously the Outdoor Masters with the Shark 3 pump, that one surprised me. I was not expecting anything from that. I'm getting ready to do some camping with this video series. So I thought, you know what, maybe I need something, blow up an air mattress, or,
right.
we've got paddle boards here. So like we can do some content. They sent that to me. That was one of the best products I've got. It's an air pump that airs up your paddle boards, inflatable kayak, air mattresses, but it's got internal battery to it. So you don't have to have it hooked up to something, and you can use it as a battery bank. So you can power your outdoor cameras. You can power, you can charge your phone. Like if you're camping, that's what surprised me about it. And it's digital. So you can set the PSI. It's quieter. We did a video. We have a, the boat pump, BOTE, the paddleboard company.
Yeah.
We paid that thing was like $230. I think it's more now. And that's quite a bit more than what this pump is. And that
took twice as long.
Yeah. The Shark pump, it aired it up half the time. It was quieter. And, I'm always surprised at some things, but man, there's some stuff that people I've worked with that the product was fine, but the obligation to do a dedicated video, you gotta, you're scripting things out, you're editing, you're filming,
burnout's a real thing.
Yeah. And then, it's like, I'd rather be fishing, or I'd rather be filming stuff on a kayak or talking about, so I realize that's not what I want to do.
I think the longevity of it is what he said. A lot of it is you have to have a passion for it, right?
Yes.
And I think that's in general in anything you do, whether that's a job, whether that's, it turns into a job, it turns into a grind.
Yep.
It is.
And the more that you enjoy it, the more you're likely to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't fish on YouTube. I don't want to turn my fishing into work.
It's like
now the river
saying,
series. Yeah, the river series is a little different.
You want to fish, right?
Yeah, because I fish a lot. But now this river series, obviously there'll be some fishing in it, but it's not centered around fishing. It's just that's a small part of it. But it's if I was filming fishing, I've tried to do it a few times, and I'm like, man, this sucks, because I'm sitting there constantly looking back, and then my GoPro is overheated or quit working, and I've got it just wasn't filmed right, or I don't have the good angle, and then you're worrying about that stuff. Then you're worrying about, what does this angle look like, or how can it look better? And I start thinking, and instead of doing what I came to enjoy to do, fish, I'm worried about all this other stuff. It's one of the reasons I don't use a fish finder. Nothing against them. I've had them. I've had a few different ones, but I find myself looking at that more than just paying attention to instinct and, signs of life, looking for birds, looking for bait, bait fish popping the top of the water, looking for, balls of shad, all of that stuff. If you go to a little cove and there's just nothing going on, chances are there's not a whole lot of fish there. But when we see eagles, we see blue heron, we see, saw osprey that one year, just diving down, catching fish. Yeah. I'm probably going to throw some lures in there and catch something.
Bait balls. And that's the thing about kayaking, and even for me, paddleboarding is actually what kind of kept me in it. Is I would go with my dog, who's actually sleeping on the couch back here. And one of the very first things that I saw on the lake was a bait ball. And not only was it a bait ball, you could actually see the fish coming up from underneath. And I was just like, I never thought I'd see that in a lake.
Yeah.
Like ocean, I expect that, but lake, it was so surprising, and it kept me wanting to get more into it, because just the vantage point you have is completely different being unmotorized. I will say that.
And that's real. That's what I tell everybody. That's what's great about the outdoors. That's not TV. That's real. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what makes it awesome. We've had up to as many as 35 on here tonight. I sure appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm going to get so I know it's getting that time of night. A lot of people are falling off, but if y'all would, Christine, and won't y'all help me do the drawing here? So I couldn't get the randomizer to work tonight. So give them a trivia question of some sort, and we'll do them in the hashtags, and whoever gets it in here first, we'll give them the giveaway tonight. So y'all want to help me with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, put a question. So y'all be looking on there. We got a $50 yak. I know the camera's bad right here, but $50 off yak rods, and we got some Deep South lures to give away tonight, y'all. So
Nice. Get to see James is actually one of the people with yak rods. The guy that we did the video with. He that's some quality stuff. I'd never seen yak rods around here, but he's done some stuff with them, and he actually was at ICAST last year with yak rods, and he had a little display in there, and I was kind of looking at those. That's a really nice setup, and the way they got the little tether system on there, I said it's genius. People think they're pricey, which they are, but I mean, you price a St. Croix rod or you price some of that other stuff. These are rods that are actually made for kayaking, so definitely kind of dug that.
So one of y'all got a question you want to put down there for them to answer? Maybe something from the show, something you mentioned. How about where you was from, Christine, if they can remember?
Sure, let's go for it.
All right. Can y'all remember? First one to get it in there. Come on now. Where did Christine said she was from? See if they's paying attention or not. Come on now.
I'll take just the state. How about that?
Oh, there you go. We'll take the state, she said. I know some of them's like, oh, no, I just put it in there. Come on.
State or city? Take it.
There you go. State or city. Where is she from?
It rhymes. There you go. There you go. Stephen, I was going to say it rhymes with Chicago.
There you go. He said, let's
Stephen
see.
Bell.
He said, crap. He said, I forgot. Well, Stephen, you've won before. He's Mr. Bell. He has been faithful to the show. I want to thank y'all. I mean, especially him for being on here. He's almost on here every week. And so we appreciate him. And Stephen, I think I still got your address, but if not, DM me on Facebook or Country Kids Outdoors, whatever, and we'll get that out to you. So, and thank you for everybody that's been new on here tonight. Probably a lot of fans of the, Bearded Paddler and Christine. So, but I hope you'll come back and enjoy the show. We appreciate that. You being on here tonight. We got 4-7 Lures who's coming on as a sponsor. The baits, I should get them next week. So we'll have some more new stuff to give away on the show. And let you all take it off for the end of the show. Anything you want to add, either one of you.
So most of you have maybe seen the video that we put out, Take Me to the River, episode 1. Definitely watch that if you haven't already. We're doing a giveaway on that. We will announce Saturday on our live stream. We're going to do a live stream on Saturday, and it's a pair of Smith Optics, the Redding 2s. It's a $300 pair of sunglasses. So Smith Optics was kind enough to send us a pair to give away. So that's one thing I like to do with my, any affiliates. If they're going to send me products, send me something to give away, because that's right. Always a good thing. But if you know the value of a good polarized pair of sunglasses, or you got a passing interest in what makes an expensive pair better than a cheap pair, hey, it's a chance to get your hands on a really good quality pair of sunglasses for free. All you got to do is share the video. It's episode 1 of Take Me to the River. Share it on your Facebook page and then tag me on the post. That's all you got to do. So we'll do a random drawing on Saturday. Get your information and send you some really nice sunglasses.
That's awesome. So y'all heard that. Well, I can't thank y'all enough for coming on. Like I said, you didn't know me from Adam, but I appreciate it so much.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
crash.
Yeah, I had to find my spot. I know the 9 o'clock's a little bit late, and I don't know. You guys are probably an hour behind us, so
we're at 8 o'clock for us. So it's perfect. It gave me time to kind of get home and get kind of wound down a little bit, and
so I sure appreciate it. Spread the word. We definitely support y'all, what you're doing. I think you're great for the industry of what you've done. I know as soon as you come on YouTube a few years back, I was like, who is this guy? Who is this bearded guy? So,
I expected that. I still get it. So
yeah, absolutely. I think Christine, you compliment him well. It's great. I love to hear you on all the other podcasts. We actually, y'all, it's listening tonight. We got window fishing coming on in a couple of weeks, so we're excited
Nice.
about having him on. And I appreciate y'all in the community. Everybody's been great to be on the show. We've had Chad Hoover on. We've had, everybody's just been great about being on the show, and I can't thank y'all enough. So
It's a
I
great,
really appreciate it.
it's a great community,
It really
and
is.
that was
It
one
is.
thing. I'm ultra competitive, and that's
Yes.
one thing that I had to kind of step away from in this, because like everybody is so great to help, and not so much help, but just get along.
Yes.
I talk with Chad pretty frequently. I talk with one of my favorite people on YouTube is Bearded Dad Fishing, Jay. Great guy to talk to.
I'm gonna try to get him on here. I ain't had him on yet, so I'm gonna try to get him.
We'll get him on. But just a quality guy, quality human being, and again, same thing with Wendell. I think I've been on that show
Like 4 times.
four
now.
times, and just enjoy talking to him. Just one of the best people out there too. So
Yeah. Really good community. I mean, Fluke Master's been on here. He's been
Yeah.
good. I mean,
he's another good one.
Yeah, I mean, they're just all good people. We say it all the time. Especially for the new guys that come on the show, I just tell them that the kayak, it ain't a lie. The kayak community is a really good community. I love them all, and they're just great people. So I appreciate it so much. So, well, thank you again, y'all. Appreciate you being on. I hope that you'll come back and be on the show again, and
Absolutely.
and we'll have you back on soon. So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you all. Have a good night.
All right. Appreciate y'all.
Yep. Well, there y'all have it, man. A great show tonight. Thank you so much. Probably one of the highest numbers we ever had on the show. So I'm thankful for that. Tell your friends about it. Spread the word. I love doing it. I try to bring you some good guests on here, and now we're getting some giveaways. So we'll continue to do that. And like I always say, you can't harvest them in the house. You got to get up, get outdoors, and have a great time and worship the Creator more than the created. Have a good night.